us there. Thank you
I'm
so
totally,
much.
yeah, I'm totally excited. By the way, just for everyone else who's watching here, I can't help myself but say this, that there's a reason, there's a couple of reasons why Neha is talked about when she's not here, in a good way, and why she's being successful right now is because she's tenacious. Like, she's curious about it, she's going after it, she's asking her questions, she's getting them answered, and it's been like that for a long time, and she just keeps being she just keeps growing in the impact of the work that she's doing, and it's commendable. I mean, like a lot of other people just, I don't get it, and like hit the, give up. And so
Hey, thank you so much, like Lee, and thank you community, like all the guys who are helping here. This is really great, like working, learning new things. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. We'll try to hit you before Friday as well, like with some of the questions. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you.
All righty. Well, I know that there's a number of us that we're going to hang out to talk about, to do a couple of items in Figma and kind of orient us around, UX challenges. And so, again, please feel free to hang out. Everyone's welcome. I'm going to try to do it briskly, so I'm going to monologue maybe for a moment. If I can, I'm going to make some assumptions about things that are going on. So here it is. For Meshery as a project, and for the other projects in the 5 or so websites that we use. Oh, by the way, I'm not a narcissist. Oh, good God! It looks like I've just put #1 all over my face. We were exploring the UX that I don't know if anyone's ever used FigJam, but it's got some awesome UX that is inspiring toward MeshMap, toward one of the plugins that the community works on. So I don't know how you clear your board, but I'm not despite what my wife says, I'm not a narcissist, I swear. So, okay, back on track. So we use Figma as a tool for illustrations and for wireframing, diagramming, and whatever, low res and high res and all that. And so there's a set of instructions so we've got a bunch of pages. We use this as a free tool. Hopefully, everyone that joins in the community that's not here to delete things is welcome to have edit access and can go through this. We do ask that you adhere to the conventions here. So if people are working on things and you want to do a design, please don't, if you would, please do not update the other person's work directly, just because even though there's a revision history in Figma as a tool, can be alarming to people to come back and find that their work's gone or somebody has disapproved of it and changed it and done their own thing. So, please be polite and basically follow the structure like this. The pages should be laid out kind of like this. Each of these pages should be laid out kind of like this for a given area. If they're not, please structure the page like this. This kind of explains how it is that we try to collaborate using this UX tool, using Figma. And so there are, in Meshery, there's any number of screens or pages. Neha was just showing us like the settings page. I call out the settings page because I'm not sure that the settings page is in fact wireframed in here. Like there's a lot of stuff we're sort of like, we need to retroactively create actual designs for things that we have today. This isn't too far away from what we have for performance management. And this is an actual design. But the thing that we really have for performance management right now, we don't actually have in design. So there's a lot of actual just work to be done in terms of like creating components and making sure that we're creating reusable components such that we're doing design well and we're being intelligent about the same dry principles. Do not repeat yourself principles that we use in code. We would be using here as well. So hopefully the majority of us are, well, I'll speak for myself, are Figma ignoramuses. And so we only know what we're doing because we made mistakes and figure out that we should make components and things like that. And so we should create we should take and make actual color styles based on the project brand and the guideline. You know, so there's a lot of so I want to randomly cover a number of things, but within here there is a style guide. There's icons and general use of things. We do follow material UI, and so there are some general material UI components that are borrowed from free projects that help with just getting us some of these components quickly. We're not attempting to create our own design language, although over time that's essentially what's happening, is that this style guide becomes its own language. And so we have a color scheme between these 4 colors primarily for things that we do within Meshery. But there's also a set of colors for notifications. There's a notifications center today, and tomorrow, hopefully, there's an operations center, of which we'll talk about that another time, what that looks like. But there'd been recent work on the notification center, maybe just as an example, in which we finally got figured out, and these probably need transferred to that general components page, but we finally got figured out what these things actually look like. We don't really, one of the things that we've done a poor job of is capturing states and behavior of what's going on. So what happens can the user just click anywhere on this misspelled preference, anywhere on this, and have it dismissed, or do they actually have to click the X? Well, from this mock-up, I don't know. How long does this hang out? Is this transient, or does it persist until dismissed? I'm looking, I don't see it described here. So we're missing all that, tons of that kind of a thing. There's a few areas that have been prototyped, and that's very helpful for understanding the behavior again. But some of what we do as well is just, use words on the side to describe what would happen, and that can be okay. But we've gotten a little more sophisticated. This page itself isn't really, it's kind of following the outline that I was saying that needs to be followed here, of hey, there's an area for where we might capture things that are inspiring to us and we want to reflect on. There's each individual screen or page, the name of it, any notes about that page, then the actual design for that page, and then any designs that are subsequent drafts, in-flight drafts, or things that have just ultimately been archived. And I know that my screen's a little small. So that flow, if we've done well on this page, you should follow that same general flow. We've got inspiration happening here. And this, by the way, is a product and a team that I'd worked on at Cisco, or a related team. They've got a notification center and an operations center. We won't talk about, but just we're taking, okay, well, that's great inspiration. There's a whole team of UXers and UI folks. And so just reflecting on what they've done helps. And then we've got the screen name, kind of this itself isn't following. So there's one task right there is hey, we need to revisit each of these pages, make sure that they're following the structure so that it becomes easy for all of us to iterate on these things. That's one item. To give another small item that has yet to be done is, I guess Neha didn't, but Meshery does performance tests, and people can look at the output of those tests. They can see in a graph the results. They can call up that graph of results for a particular test by clicking here, for example, and they get a modal that shows them the results. It's horrific. It's pretty ugly and really hard to understand. And people have been trying to improve upon it, but they've been doing that off the cuff with sort of what feels good. And we've yet to do an actual design of what that should be. So I'll take an action item to make open an issue for that, so that, and describe it a little bit better, so that in case anyone wants to try their hand at that particular challenge, they can. Part of the reason that I hesitate to invest in those that want to do, it's a massive investment it's a massive risk to invest in anyone that comes into the community, because overwhelmingly, the vast majority of the time, people are here for some time and they inevitably take off. and they learn a bunch of stuff and they take it with them, and that's awesome. But it also is such a time suck trying to teach people, more or less. And that is very much so the case for those that engage in UX, in part because people that come to this community are generally nerds of a different kind, nerds of gophers or other things, of infrastructure or DevOps, and not, and so, which means that they're implicitly somewhat handicapped toward stuff that looks good. Like, I don't know why this, left brain, right brain stuff or whatever, but so we don't get as much talent in that regard. And then those that come, like really understanding UX is like, well, who's the persona? What are they trying to do? What's the user flow? What's the task at hand? How do we get there in as few clicks as possible? What the heck is Fortio? Like, there's a certain amount of like digestion that has to happen for the UXer to really suggest something that's decent. And so hence my hesitancy toward investing in trying to ramp folks on UX. We can't not do it though. It's absolutely critical. There's any amount of low-hanging fruit, any amount of like things that are relatively simple to fix that just need fixing. Like here's an example. I think this is an actual screenshot, yeah. And on the screen, I've got rows that I can navigate here and rows that I can navigate here. And gosh, if we could make this any more complex, I challenge you to do that. Like, it's so a lot of it's about information architecture, information management. So we're not for a lack of details to be able to expose, but we're really for a lack of people having given it quiet thought as to what those interfaces should look like. Today, this is not, I think this is a mock-up. Yeah. This is fairly close to what Neha was looking at. And it is, it just needs a complete overhaul. It's not horrific. Like this is probably the only thing that's okay. It's like, here's a decent empty state module component section, whatever. It should be showing, ideally it would be showing what Neha was doing, which is performance charts or metrics. If you don't have those connected, then this is the empty state. So it's good. It's not showing you in big red letters like, oh, you're broken, because you're not broken. Maybe you don't want any metrics. It does let you know that you're missing something. You could be having a better experience. And by the way, here's how you can do that. Great, like it's pretty good, not too bad. These things, like this is so unintuitive. I don't like, and I'm embarrassed for myself or whatever, having suggested this in the first place. That this is just a holdover from like 2 years ago when we decided to categorize operations that you could do. And the Meshery itself is so much more capable and dynamic in its capabilities than these fairly fragile, static buckets of operations that you can invoke, that the user can take. Is basically bucketized operations. Like one of them is to install or delete a service mesh. The other one is to take an application and to install or delete an application. Once you have either of those two deployed, you can update their configuration by clicking play, which isn't that intuitive versus the, and when we say delete, like there's a, yeah, anyway. It's a lot to go through. I dropped 1 or 2 items that were small enough maybe and kind of specific enough that people might think through them. We looked at, I know it was difficult to follow what Utkarsh was presenting, not Utkarsh's issue. It was difficult to follow because it's like complex. We're talking about this DevOps infrastructure stuff, Kubernetes and contexts and clusters and multiple clusters and then operators and custom control. It's just hard to follow. But if you got a sense of the challenge was, it's kind of reflected here. Challenge is, if I'm going to affect a service mesh, if I'm going to affect some infrastructure, Neha was just demoing the fact that when she affects that infrastructure, she's going to do it in context of a namespace. That namespace that she was using was default soon Neha and every other user, they can do that in context of the namespaces. Those are in context of a cluster, Kubernetes cluster, where you could click to switch between other clusters, and then you would get a different set, a different pick list, a different set of namespaces. Well, today, if you can recall what Neha was sharing, there is no selector for Kubernetes. It's just implicit that you're connected to one, and that's it. Well, no, actually, we need something. And maybe it's a chip. Although, again, if you're connected to a bunch of clusters, we're going to start to run out of room real quick, and it's going to start to. So there's a smallish open challenge that's hopefully everyone can. So with that, I'll stop the monologue and say, does that give those that are interested in iterating here enough to kind of start, enough to begin to get comfortable? Thank you, Aditya. It's a ton of info it's like drinking from the fire hose, like a ton of things that were just said. So I'll say a smaller item. This right here, this menu has changed. This is an old version. It needs to, so this particular component needs to be deleted, and it needs to be refreshed from an actual Figma component designated by the purple. I don't know that we have a designated component just yet. But so that's an example of a small item that needs to be done about just cleanup in Meshery or in the Figma. Okay. Comments, questions?
Yeah, I just want to say it's a lot of complex things to get into the Meshery and things. It's the learning curve is a bit too much, so I think we have to work on that to the learning part and the design process part in order to get a better UI. So we have to work on the learning part and understanding what Meshery really is, and understanding how it really works, and understanding how the end users are. So it's a challenging. So I think it's a bit. But I think maybe investing a good amount of time in learning the basics and the foundation will help us to improve the user experience.
Totally. Yeah. And the way my advice, my counsel, the way to be successful is to either choose or just ask for a super, super, super small item. And then after you're successful with that one, another super small, another super small. And my advice is ignore all the stuff, ignore everything else. Like if the item is what I just said, like here's the latest component for the menu, ignore everything that's in it. You don't need to understand anything. You just need to go verify. Do all of the other places where that is used, are they using that component? Yes, no. If they're not, then that's it, update the component. And then that's like it. And then the more that you impact the project, the more that gets invested into you and more described to you, the longer you're just sort of you're digesting and seeing things and learning things and hearing about them and getting them reinforced. And then you sort of incrementally move to bigger and bigger things. And I would say like, yeah, there's no way, the vast majority of the world doesn't understand what a service mesh is. So naturally, you have no freaking clue or whatever. Like, most people don't. It would be really weird if you did, or Kubernetes or all that stuff. And in a lot of respects, in some respects, it's like really good that you don't. Like when you're going over and you're eventually, like after the 10th step, you're going over and you're saying, okay, I know that we have a calendar where people they do things on a calendar. And they can click to navigate a calendar like this. And you're like, yeah, I'm comfortable with the calendar because I used a calendar all my life. And so I've used it, and you've used it in 10 different applications. and you're like, why isn't this in the middle? Maybe that would make sense. Or like, hey, if I'm on the day today, if today happens to be the, like, what, why isn't this highlighted to show that like that's my active link or something? Like you don't have to have context for any of the performance tests and all this histograms and all these results and metrics. It's like, as a matter of fact, so I guess what I was trying to say is like, in some respects, it's good that you don't, because you can just ignore it. Don't even try to understand it. Or, like ultimately long-term, yeah, you'd be extraordinarily impactful if you really do understand all the stuff underneath, but you can be really impactful and become a maintainer of the project and other, go speak on KubeCon stage or whatever, like any of these things without still not understanding anything. Like you can go talk on stage. I'll go get you a talk on any, like you got like 10 requests to go talk right now at various things or whatever, like whatever your goal is, like we can go do it and you can just go talk about, you can just go say, I have no idea what a mesh is. That didn't stop me from being extremely impactful in this project. And I'll tell you why, because users that use, because, and then you talk about the UX, the design and your thoughts through it. People can't digest really more than 7 inputs on a given screen. Like that's a human-centered design kind of established fact. So how many inputs do we have on the screen? So, people don't, they generally like to start off with a 12-hour format, but they might want to switch to a 24-hour. So where would we put that? How would we make that understood that they could do that? But they don't, like, there's like, we could talk about this thing right here, just, for like a whole nother couple of hours. So we say we're on a week, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Wow, I didn't know that the weeks had that many, like, how do I nav to the next week? I don't know. There's no button to like go next or something. Okay, so how do I don't know. Wow, this is crap. Like, and that's just, a calendar. And yeah, it would be really hard to argue against you if you were to say those things like, as a user, I'm not sure how to go to next week. Okay, fine, you win. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe we can add another button to say to go to next week or anything like that.
Totally. Yeah, totally. There's arrows on either side of this thing that seems somewhat intuitive. Yeah, whatever the thing is, an arrow, maybe just a super slim arrow. If they, whatever the thing is, like how can I? There's no sort of implicit. You wouldn't want to color code. You wouldn't want to highlight more than one at a time, but there's no vertical borders either. Okay. Anyway, yeah, all of the above. So.
Yeah, sure. So I can start working on the basic, the sidebar bin you mentioned earlier, so that I can give a good proper look for that and implement as an component and get back to you.
That'd be perfect. Yeah, and actually, just to get you totally on your way, here is a screenshot that should be you can base it off of this screenshot here. And maybe we'll grab you a couple of other screenshots to show you what it looks like minimized and some of the behavior. But is Abhishek still on the call?
No, I guess he just left.
Cool. So Joel, that's great. And then Leonard, I don't know if there's any thoughts.
Okay. Thanks, Lee. I really appreciate what that you have done, and from what you've shown, I think, to be honest, what Joel said is correct. I've been trying to wrap my hands around what really Meshery is all about. But you've like pointed me the right direction. I don't need to understand the whole project as a whole to like impact on the project. So since Joel have more experience in the UX part, I think I would like work with him. I would be messaging him from time to time, see if he has figured out one or two things, or if we can figure out a thing or two together and see how we can improve that. So basically, that's what I think I would be able to do at the point. And I would also try to look at the Figma design and see if maybe with my beginner eyes point out few things that also needs changing and talk to him too. So I think if that works, then that's what I will do for now.
That's great. Yeah, it really does help to partner up, by the way. And that's actually, it's because 4 or 5 of you said, hey, I'm interested, that we're like, it's enough, like, yeah, you guys will reinforce one another and play off of one another in terms of ideas and in terms of, and yeah, I'll be on it. Like I would say this, even if there were 35 people on the call, that the overwhelming majority of people that come to the project to write Golang or to write React or whatever the language, guess what? They have no friggin' clue what a Kubernetes is or any of the other stuff either. Yes, everyone understands a calendar, but the overwhelming majority, they're in the exact same boat as you guys. Like, well, I don't know. And then where do they start? Like, just talk to, like, the Vendu is going to give a talk on this. You start with adding a period on the end of the sentence. Like, you just start with the smallest thing you can freaking find. You just add value and you just keep going. And guarantee you, we only want to support people who are adding value. We only want to uplift and help them do more. And yeah, ignore the other stuff. Like, because that right there. It's so funny because I know people don't say it, but I know that they internalize that, what I just said, as like, well, I'm better than that. Like, I have too much pride. My pride's not gonna let me just sit there and do this other nonsense. Or I'm like, you said I need to go around and like copy paste this component in different places. Like, go find some other monkey to do it. Like, and and I get a chuckle out of it. It's like, well, fine. Like, it's not that I don't get it. It's not that I'm upset by that. I get a chuckle because that's human nature, not to put in the effort and the work to do the thing. And most people don't ever benefit from it. They don't like stick around, put in the work, and the longer that they do it, the more they benefit from it. They don't make it, and they end up not having great jobs. They end up not being that smart. They end up, because they didn't want to put in the elbow grease to like go do the thing. If this is the right place to do it, then I encourage you to dig in and do it. And if this isn't the right place, then that makes sense. Like, it isn't the right place. It's not an issue. Because I guess what I was trying to say is most people will fall prey to, they're like, yeah, I think this is the right place. This stuff looks interesting. These guys don't seem like a-holes, or totally, I don't know about that guy Lee, but Nivendu seems nice anyway. And so I'm going to try to put in the effort here. And okay, well, wait, I need to have the full context of like before I take anything on. So let me just, and that's it. Like, they're lost. It's like they're out in outer space and they get severed from the connection to the spaceship, and just like free float out into no man's land. Like, they never come back. Like, they're gone. Because like, I don't know all the stuff we're doing. Shit, I don't know. That's why you guys are here. Or, and so, yeah, don't fall prey to that. Just go fix the grammar on the sentence. Go do the small thing. Yeah, man. All right, cool. Well, do me a favor if you guys would, as you go to dig in and find your spots, don't let me bottleneck you. There are other people that are trusted, other leaders in the community that are trusted, that can steer you right, that can enable access to things, or can help be a sounding wall that can give you feedback. And maybe I'll just go point some of them out in the Slack. That's one thing. The second thing is, and Leonard, the second thing is to try to bring the other guys with you. Like you were just doing with Joel, and see if a collection of you can't engage. You'll be more successful like that as well. Cool. So Leonard, by the way, man, I can't help but say this. So, the thing I was saying in Slack about like, most people come and they say they're going to do something, and like, this is an example of that, right? Like, you're the last man standing. So, I mean, like, it's just, yeah. All right. Cool. Okay. Well, thanks for hanging out, and I'll catch you in Slack.
All right. Take care, Lee.
Okay. All right.
Take care too. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.